Getting good at Fortnite on controller is hard. Even though nearly 80% of all Fortnite players use a controller, when you look at the top competitive players in the world, it's dominated by keyboard and mouse. That's because controller is simply harder to get good on. But that's why over the years, Fortnite has added tons of new settings specifically to help us controller players keep up. And today, I'm testing every one of these settings. From the brand new tweak zone aiming to simple edit and simple build, quick weapon binds, one button controller reset, auto pickup, and more. I'm going to figure out which of these settings actually make us controller players better, starting with tweak zone, which is the newest controller setting, and this was added because on controller it's incredibly hard to hit long range shots. These tiny micro adjustments are really easy to do with a mouse and a whole arm to control the precision, but when us controller players only have one thumb on our right stick trying to do the same thing, it's way less accurate. So ever since tweak zone got added, with the right settings, you can actually use this to slow down your crosshair at long ranges and really track those precise tiny adjustments. And this is a setting I've actually been using since the day it came out. In just the first day that I ever used tweak zone aiming, I already felt my aim get noticeably better, and I've been playing the game since chapter 1, so that's kind of crazy that one single setting can improve my aim that much. So the sensitivities I actually use to get this aim is this, specifically with this ADS sense, and in these specific tweak zone settings right here: tweak zone aiming always on, tweak zone building off, tweak zone at 60%, and tweak offset at 1. But what I haven't yet tried it with is actually build and editing turned on. I've never used tweak zone building, and so this basically does the same exact thing where you can make those tiny adjustments in your builds and edits without actually moving your camera, just using your crosshair. But because I actually have my tweak zone settings dialed in for aiming specifically to get the best possible aim, it doesn't really make any difference with my builds and edits. At the super close range that you do your builds and edits with, it's just not really worth actually using tweak zone on. And actually, even just going through and building right here, it feels like it's messing me up more than it's helping me. I feel slower with this turned on. So tweak zone aiming, very good for controller players if you're going to use the correct settings for this. Tweak zone building, not good for controller players. But just one tab over is another massive setting for controller players that Fortnite sort of recently added within the last year. It's in controller binds under edit all the way down here where it says reset building. This bind right here, not your actual reset button, but this one where it says reset building. This bind specifically is a one button controller reset. This means if I have a build edited, all I have to do is click that one button and it instantly resets the build for me. Now, if you're using a regular controller, it's really hard to actually take advantage of this unless you're playing claw grip and can click some random button like this for your instant reset. But how I actually use it to get insanely fast resets is by using this Pro PS5 controller from Scuff called the Scuff Omega. It's my #1 favorite Pro PS5 controller. I think it's the best in the world. I'll link it in the pinned comment if you want to check it out. But basically, this not only has 4 paddles on the back, but it also has 2 side buttons here. So my one button controller reset is on right D-pad, but I also mapped this right side button to also be right D-pad. So all I have to do is watch my right index finger. I can instantly reset builds just by clicking this one side button. And so especially if I'm doing a build like this, or especially in box fights, I can edit and reset my builds just as fast as keyboard and mouse players can do with their scroll wheel reset. And this one setting change has improved my fighting by an incredible amount. Scroll wheel reset for keyboard and mouse players was maybe the biggest disparity between controller and keyboard and mouse players, because their ability to box fight and just constantly reset builds faster than we could was impossible for us controller players to actually keep up with. But if you're able to play claw or get a pro controller and actually take advantage of this one button controller reset bind, then it's literally one of the best settings they've ever added to the game for controller players. Like, it's actually crazy how big of a difference it can make, especially when you're fighting other skilled players. But the next setting Fortnite added to help us controller players is simple edit. Now, simple edit is actually over here in the game tab, which means it's not only for controller players. Keyboard and mouse players can use it too, but I say it's a setting to mainly help us controller players because controller players are mainly the ones that are really slow editors. Keyboard and mouse is, I'll say, it's easy to get fast at editing on keyboard and mouse. I think even noobs within a day could learn how to triple edit, do 90s. Like, it's not hard at all to get decent at building and editing on keyboard and mouse, but controller is a whole different story. It's hard to get good and fast at building and editing on controller. And that's why I think that simple edit actually helps us controller players more than it does for the keyboard and mouse players, because this setting puts even bad controller players on a level playing field with good keyboard and mouse players. People like to say simple edit is cringe and it's not real Fortnite, which they're entitled to that opinion, but it doesn't change the fact that it's absolutely broken. If you're a controller player that's not very fast at editing and you find yourself getting out-edited a lot in your build fights, people might call you bad or corny for using it, but it's genuinely an insane help. Simple build, on the other hand, I'm not so sure about. I've actually never even tried to experiment with simple build, and I've never really seen anyone use it. But this is a setting that got added significantly after simple edit got added, and I think it's because they saw the success of simple edit, so they made this simple build setting, and this simple build setting is just honestly not good. It's so unpredictable. You literally have no idea what build it's gonna place, and so simple build for controller players, never good. Not in any scenario is this setting good. Simple edit for controller players, actually really good. Of course, just because it's good doesn't mean you have to use it. I think it's way more satisfying to edit normally, but if you don't care and just want to win games and be as good as you possibly can, simple edit is not a bad option. I think you could actually say that when the advanced controller options got added in chapter 2, this was the first ever time Fortnite actually tried to make controller players better at the game, and that was a huge success. But the next time they tried to make controller players better was when they added this setting, quick weapon. This setting has now been around for years. I'm pretty sure they added this setting before they added simple edit, before they added one button instant controller reset, before they added tweak zone. And so if you've never messed with this setting, which I think a lot of people actually have never even tried to use this setting, it basically means instead of using your two bumpers to switch between your weapons like you typically do, this basically gives you an activation bind. So by default, it's RB, and when you hold onto RB, then it pops up this menu, and now you can click any of your face buttons to automatically swap to that weapon slot. So basically, instead of spamming your bumpers and just hoping you land on the right slot you're going for, with quick weapon enabled, you can make sure you get to the correct slot every single time without ever messing up. The issue though is to actually switch to any of your weapon slots, you have to take your right thumb off the stick and actually click them. So doing this in the middle of fighting while you're trying to switch and swap to all your guns is obviously slow and awkward, which is the main reason it hasn't caught on. However, where the setting is actually crazy is at any point, if I'm over here on my grappler 2 slots away from my shotgun, I can grappler, click RB once, and it automatically pulls out my shotgun. So if I'm over here using my minis trying to heal up, someone sneaks up on me, I can instantly pull out my shotgun and shoot right away just by clicking RB. So if I ever have weapon slots 2 through 3 toggled, no matter what one I'm on, I can always automatically toggle my shotgun, and I'll never accidentally go to the wrong slot because it's impossible to. But then the interesting thing is once I'm actually here in my first slot, you can see now if I click RB, it'll actually go automatically to my second slot. And so now if I spam RB, it'll actually just swap between the 2 first weapon slots. So now shooting with your shotgun and quickly following up with your spray and then going back to your shotgun is not hard. That's actually really simple. But again, the biggest issue is those other weapon slots. You have to take your thumb completely off the stick to click any of those other weapon slots. And anytime I'm actually holding RB, I can't actually edit, I can't jump, I can't pull out my pickaxe, I can't do anything. I'm basically just a sitting duck whenever I'm holding RB like this. So you have to be super fast, but again, it just makes it awkward. And the thing is, if you've already been playing Fortnite on controller for a long time and you're used to just swapping between your weapon slots like this anyway, it's not a big deal to actually do this. You'll be used to it, and eventually you'll get so good at the muscle memory that you'll never actually find yourself on the wrong weapon slot. You'll be able to know exactly where everything is without even looking at your items. So while quick weapon is a really good controller setting in theory it helped controller players a ton, but in reality it's just too slow, it's too awkward, and the normal way of switching weapons is just not bad enough to actually justify using this. So quick weapon for controller players, not good. And now back over to the game tab for another controller setting that I swear Fortnite only added for us controller players to get better. Because earlier I talked about how overpowered keyboard and mouse is for scroll wheel resets, but another thing mouse has is scroll wheel pickup. And not only do keyboard and mouse players have a scroll wheel that's faster than spamming squares on controller, but also the most popular keyboard in Fortnite that over 70% of pro Fortnite players use is the SteelSeries Apex Pro. This keyboard has a software that comes with it that actually allows you to have built-in macros, and at this point pros don't even hide the fact that they're actually using macros. You'll see clips like this one from Bolts where he's not even worried about this player getting the gun before him, he's literally mocking him because he knows his macro is gonna pick up everything before this player can get a single piece of it. And then there comes us controller players running in here, taking our thumbs off our right stick, spamming square to pick up loot. I even have my side button mapped to square to try to pick up loot faster, but it still doesn't matter. If I try to 50-50 a chest with the keyboard and mouse player, it doesn't matter if they're using a macro or a scroll wheel. It's not even a 50-50 at that point. I'm going to lose that every single time. But the one way that us controller players could actually even have a chance to get the loot before the scroll wheel or the macro does is over here in the game tab, down here under combat, with this setting right here, auto pickup weapons. So many people hate on this setting, but it's literally the only possible way you can compete with these keyboard and mouse sweats that have macros and scroll wheels. Now, the reason people hate this setting is because if you have an empty inventory, it doesn't matter what slot, your inventory is always going to fill up, and a lot of the times, especially if it's an early game or you use all your heals or something, it's going to fill up with stuff that you don't actually want in your inventory. But the key to making it actually usable and not that bad to deal with is to come to your preferred item slots and turn them off. Do not use preferred item slots if you use auto pickup. Without auto pickup, I would never even dream of trying to go for this chest, but now I'm going to go for this and I'm going to actually get the loot. It's ridiculously overpowered. Obviously, macros and scroll wheels can still beat you. There's just not much you can do about that on controller except get your own macro. But the big idea is that it actually gives you a chance. Now click here if you want to see the controller settings and controller setups of every single one of the top 14 controller pros in the world. I'm not kidding. I found all of their settings. I found the controllers they use. I figured out if they play paddles, if they play claw. I figured out everything about them and exposed everything. Or you can click here if you want to actually learn how to play with paddles and a pro controller in Fortnite. They're tips I wish I knew sooner. They'll help you learn how to get good at paddles in only one day of playing. Of course, make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching.